I love driving back and forth to Cody. It's wonderful. You know, go away to the park and turn around and go back and turn all the way around. Like, may I begin by asking us to stand and say the pledge of allegiance? Good afternoon. My name is Janine Bateski. I am the chair of the Wyoming Charter School Authorizing Board, and I'll be acting as the facilitator for this capacity interview today. First, let me congratulate your team for being invited to participate in this process, and thank you for dedicating your time and efforts toward creating a charter school. As you know, it is a rigorous process. It needs to be approved. It is a rigorous process to approve a charter school. We thank you for committing to and engaging in this competitive process. The interview will last about 90 minutes. However, I think we have extra time at the end if there are more questions that need to be answered. We'll take about 10 minutes for introductions and an opening statement from your team, and approximately 60 minutes for questions regarding your application, and another 15 minutes to answer questions that you may have or discuss the next steps in the process. Interviewers have read your entire application and have developed questions so we can get more clarifying information. We'd like to set a few ground rules for the interview. Your team should designate a primary respondent for each question. The primary respondent may vary depending upon the topic. Expect to spend 2 to 3 minutes on the initial response to the question, allowing time for follow-up. And feel free to ask for clarification. We have a number of topics to cover, so if we cut you off or otherwise limit your response, it is in the interest of making sure that we have a chance to respond to other questions or concerns. Let's begin with the introduction, starting with the interviewers. On my far left is Doug Chamberlain. Doug was appointed to this board by the governor. Next to me is John Masters. John was also appointed by the governor. I'm Janine Bateski. I was also appointed by the governor. To my right is Joseph Weiler. Joe was appointed by the state superintendent. Next, we have Dr. Ellen Buss. Dr. Buss is a professor at the University of Wyoming and represents University of Wyoming. And at the far end, we have Fred Van Ayers, and Fred represents the State Board of Education. So at this point, what we're going to do is we will just rotate amongst all of the interviewers and pose questions. So, Mr. Masters, would you like to start?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, would it be appropriate if we did a quick?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You are right.
In a quick introduction, we'll start down here and we'll all end with me, and thank you so much. I got a logistics question after they're done. Thank you. Why don't we start on that end and speak right up?
Passing the microphone. Yeah. I wonder if you could just speak it for the.
Yeah, I wonder if is it there?
We can speak loud. Look for Zoom. Yeah, look at that. They want to try to capture it.
We have to do it for the Zoom. Otherwise, they won't be able to hear.
Hi, my name is Casey Creller, Finance Officer for American Preparatory Schools. So that's why I'm here. And so I handle financial and some administrative matters for our school district and city.
I'm Carolyn Schmidt. I'm the president of American Preparatory Schools.
David Shrev with American Preparatory Schools Business Manager.
Tim Evansich, Assistant Superintendent of American Preparatory Schools, focusing on area of operations, and a parent of 3 graduates of American Preparatory Academy.
Sean Larson, partner at Athline Coons and legal counsel.
Good afternoon, Jeff Darty. My background is in K-12 education, served as an assistant superintendent, and then provided capital construction, administrative support for school districts in Wyoming. And I'm also the Wyoming-based consultant for this applicant.
Hi, Stephen Funk. I'm the semi-retired community activist who's been around here for 20 years or so and deeply passionate about education. And that's, thank you all for being here too.
Dave Jenkins, a local, born and raised here, and like raising my kids here, businessman, and just volunteer in the community.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shackelford. I'm a local real estate agent, mother of 3 children, 2 of which are currently in LCSD #2, 1 graduated last year.
Thank you. My name is Stan Knox. I've been serving the Senate in the last 20 years or so. I've served in both the House and the Senate. I've got another hat here in this region too. I serve as the chairman of the board of directors for Lower Valley Energy, which is the power company that serves Jackson and Startup. I want to appreciate, let's just say we appreciate you coming. And Madam Chair, with your permission, I can just go over a couple of few points really quick as we lead into the question. Okay. And a logistics question, Madam Chair. As you ask those questions, I think we can go straight to the person that is the specialty in that area rather than go through me. If that's okay with you. Appreciate it. Thank you. So, members of the board, been involved in Alpine for a long time, about 40 years. The man whose name is on this building, Don Wooden, walked into my office and says, I want to create a town out of a water district. And I said, Don, that's a tough thing. Let's go to work. And we did. And I have been over those 40 plus years, actually a little shorter because in the district for a while, when we became a town, I was at virtually all the town council meetings. I have traveled across the state countless times for roads, water, and sewer for Alpine. And now we're taking a step further. With that, I'm just going to take a few of your notes out of your book and address those right now. As far as the education plan goes, we bring to the table experience with the APA, 5,500 students per year. And they do stellar work in math, the sciences, and all that's involved, math, science, and reading. Financial model, when ADM model works, we can make it work with this school. The governance, we have a charter board with experience. Bankers, parents, people with Main Street business experience. Functioning board, because of all those reasons we have on the board. You look around here, you'll hear from one parent here that understands what it means to be involved in a children's school. Recruitment for professional development. I have no worries about recruitment here. We do that with Lower Valley Energy. They come because of this beautiful area. And I would appreciate you not talking about this beautiful area when you go back to the parts going on, okay? And the reason for a charter school, it's about education. I invited President Seidel over, he came, West Wyoming Community College President Young, he came, and Tara Powers, Mark Burbeck over education, because it's about creating a program here, an educational program, a successful charter program that feeds into our Western Wyoming Community College, our university, and automatically feeds into all what's happening in a rapidly changing world. 90 minutes south of here, an 8-year nuclear plant. We want to be a part of all of that with our charter school. So as I close out here and open up to your questions, over those 40 years, a lot of work, water, sewer, roads. I can't tell you how many times I traveled to Cheyenne for this town. And I appreciate you coming to hear our request for a charter school. It's simply about education. Thank you for your consideration.
Well, let's begin. Mr. Masters, would you like to ask the first question?
Yes, I would. And this question maybe is addressed to the folks from APS. We obviously haven't looked at with the same detail your information, but I was impressed by the data provided in guess page 25 of the application showing how your schools perform in relationship to the median in Utah. And I wonder if there was any effort to reflect in the population and demographics of your school, whether that had an influence on how those students perform as opposed to the average students in Utah. In other words, we have a better quality of student to start with, maybe food waste.
So I did some research, on the Lincoln County School District number 2 scores here. And they're strong scores as well. And so I actually see us coming into a very similar demographic. We have, in Utah, we started out in a more suburban area, obviously, than Alpine. And we have a couple of schools there, and then we have 3 schools in our urban area, what you would call Salt Lake's urban area of West Valley City. We intentionally went there second to try to see if our model could be tested successfully against a very challenging demographic of strong ELL numbers and low income numbers. And we found success there and have been identified as a gap-busting charter school system, which was where my heart was at. Does it work for all kids? That's the point. And so we were successful there. In the meantime, a rural school, our first rural experience, reached out to us. They were failing to enroll and in financial collapse. We were able to assume that charter in 2013 or 14, and we've now had 10 years of experience in rural schools. We just opened another rural area school this fall in Cedar City. So our demographic is extremely diverse. I feel like we've kind of hit all of them. And the point, I believe, is that good teaching and good solid curriculum works for all kinds of students.
Kind of as a follow-up, I noticed that you had a school in Colorado now, is that correct?
No,
Thought there was one in Broomfield. But
No.
maybe not.
that's not me. No.
And then there was one in Utah, Nevada at some point. But
Yep, we were
still
open,
had that.
we were open for 7 years in Nevada, and then the board chose to cancel our contract. And they're still operating really successfully, which is exciting for us. We're trying to take education, high quality education, to as many students as possible. And we don't feel like we have to be the ones delivering it all the time.
So these data that we're looking at reflect all of your schools in Utah, or are they just some of the top performing schools?
No, these are all of our schools. I don't know exactly which one you're looking at. It delineates. So the dots, the colored dots, that's our whole district against the whole state.
Okay, for grades 1 through 3.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Talking to my good friend Kevin Boyles here at the beginning, and conceptually, you've done a wonderful job, in my opinion, of getting out the information for a need. But conceptually, what are we looking at? Are we starting off with an elementary concept, or are we going to try to establish an entire school, which it appears to be in?
The original application is for a K-8 school and expanding 9 through 12.
And as a follow-up, when would you anticipate that the secondary school would become operative in an ideal situation?
Preferably the next year, when those 8th graders need somewhere to go for 9th grade.
Thank you very much.
So just to follow up on that, I asked them, so when you're developing a building, the building will be developed to range from K through 12, is that correct?
Madam Chair, Jeff Darden, yes, it'll be, the initial phase would be a K-8 building. And then as the educational needs of the students of the community warrant it, then we would design and add additional classrooms, starting with 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade sequentially.
So it'll be an add-on.
Excuse me?
It'll be an add-on, it will not be your initial building.
No, initial building is a K-8. So
Thank you, Mr. President.
Madam Chair, if we could continue.
Apologies for the interruption. Jeremy Larson, Alpine Town Council. Also a board member.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, so with your experience starting at K-8, versus starting at less classes? Do you feel that's going to be a challenge or something that you have experience with, and can you help us understand how you feel you can handle that broad a first effort, particularly without a school here?
Absolutely. Yes, I think an E3 is perfect. It keeps families together. So the first reason is it keeps families together, driving to one location for 9 years, K through 9, or K through 8, right? It allows families to be together, which is really key. And as far as from operational standpoint, it's not difficult in my view. The curriculum is already set forward. You hire teachers, you train them, we teach all those grade levels. So being able to open a K through 8 is not, it's not necessarily harder than opening a smaller school, in my opinion. It's better to keep the families together and see the whole sequence, because we're leveled learning. We may have third graders who are reading at a 5th grade level, and they need to have the instruction of the broad range. So providing all of the whole sequence is really easier, in my opinion. This year, we opened a small rural school and anticipated that we would fill the K through 2, and then we would be struggling for 7th graders. We would fill the 7th grade completely, and we need 10 more first graders. So I don't want to say that I know too much about anticipating what's going to actually be the reality. But what I find is that parents want a high quality education for their kids, no matter what grade they're in.
So my question for the panel is, first of all, I want to congratulate you on, because we read through the applications, the intensive amount of time, effort, and labor that goes in, so you need to be congratulated on that. It's a very big task. So I would like you to address a little bit about what you have as far as plans for your technical education for your students. That may range as far as career exploration. It looked to me, as I looked at your application, that the school is weighted pretty heavily academically. And I believe I was appointed by Superintendent Dagan because of my background. And one of her second goals of her administration was to build a strong workforce. So you would address your current technical education plans for students that would be enrolled in your school. And I'm more interested on the high school side, and we're going to ease in the things. So when you get ramped up with high school students, what will that look like? Thanks.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'll fill that in first. That was the reason I brought in Terra Power, Mark Verbeek, because we want to feed into that. When they're up and ready to go, we want to be ready. We want to create technical side of this education too, where they can go into a place like that, which is, it is the future of energy, and be ready to go. That was a unique thing. Something as big as Terra Power, we have them here. We shared that same message with President Seidel and President Young, and they came in. We want to have not only just the educational side, but we want to have them be prepared to go to work. Maybe it's Terra Power, maybe it's down in the Corona patch, but we want them prepared and ready to be a viable part of them. Anybody else want to add?
As it's passing me, I would add that we've gotten such great feedback and response from the educational world. I brought this because I'm proud of it. That's a note from Ed Seidel, who was here with us for dinner, saying that we look forward to working with you. And then Gene Humphrey, who you might know, the 9A Tranche, he came here and looked us all over. I happen to know him because I can't remember which one of you is from Casper. I was involved with Gene in the Casper air races. And Gene is committed honorariums for high school students that we haven't even built a high school yet. And I mean, it's a tribute to this board. It's also a tribute to Senator Baxter for bringing those people here.
If you carefully read the application, I believe on give a page number on that. Yeah, 142. It outlines our high school curriculum, and I wanted to point out it says 0 requirements for career technical education, but then it lists a bunch of classes. Same thing with digital literacy. It says 0 requirements. The requirements piece is based on what your state requirements are for credits for graduation. But I listed the classes to indicate that we have a strong interest, just echoing what they said, in providing varied classes for career and technological technology, general sciences and advancing sciences, which is a newer field. And so we're committed to that agenda. Because our students take mathematics at their level, starting in kindergarten. Students are able to progress in mathematics without any barriers. They're never looked at as a first grade math student or a second grade math student. What we found after 21 years is that by third grade, in a school of 90 students per grade, or so, let's call it 100, you will have about 5 students, 6 students, 7 students. So we're talking about 5% of your students who can naturally perform at 2 grade levels above, putting them into full-on math, algebra by 7th, 6th to 6th grade, actually, through calculus 3 by the end of 9th grade or 10th. There's 5% of our kids in our country who could be there by the end of 9th grade. And we were always asking ourselves, where are those scientists and those mathematicians? I maintain they're being held back by this vision of first grade math, second grade math. There's some kids who come to us and they're ahead of math the whole time. And so we want to have a place for our in our high school where those kids can go into the advanced sciences that are math connected. And those courses may not even be conceived of yet. We've been partnering with universities in Utah for those kids to attend, to create courses for them. So that's.
So Carolyn, maybe this is the right time for you to talk a little bit about how you cluster the students in small groups, which I think gets to the very point we're talking about.
Yes, the way we accomplish that is what I just described, is that every student takes an assessment when they come into the school reading math. It's very simple, no pressure, no tears. It's just, we need to know what you're doing, where your achievement level is. We don't call it ability level at our school at all. It's about achievement, like what level are you actually performing at right now? And once we do those assessments, then we create small achievement levels groups for the students to receive their skills classes in. The skills classes are reading, mathematics, and then we have a third one that can be a double, you know, another reading, another math, or it can be a more language based. If you're an English language learner, you would be doing an intensive English speaking class during that period. So we have 3 periods of time during the day. It's all about our structure. We have an hour early morning and then another hour, and then we have 40 minutes in the afternoon that provides extra time. And during those periods, and let me just kind of go back in your mind, if this isn't too complicated, but let's say we have that school I was telling you about a second ago with 3 classes per grade. And so you're going to have almost 100 kids in every grade. And that you band the students in K through 3 or 4 through 6. In this case, it would be K through 3 and 4 through 8. And you would assess all the students, and then at 8:30, your K through 3 band goes to reading, and they go to whatever level. And at 9:30, your 4 through 6 goes, or 4 through 8 in this case, will go to reading. And then at 10:30, that first band goes to math, at 11:30, the second band goes to math, and then at 1 o'clock, we do our 40-minute, and then another 40-minute. Because everyone in the band is going to a reading class, there's no stigma about what level you're at. The classes are not numbered or colored or named after birds or any other thing. They're just your reading class. And the math is the same. They're not numbered or anything. It's just you're going to math. And that way, students are in first grade and third grade, and they're all together in a math class. They're just in math together. So the stigma is removed. And kids are able to spend 60 minutes at their precise instructional level at 5 days a week, 300 minutes a week at their precise instructional level, as opposed to being in a second grade math class in a typical public school with one teacher with many levels that she's trying or he's trying to address. And so your fast flyers, we call those kids, they may get 7 to 10 minutes on a really good day of math instruction in another model, whereas ours, they're getting 60 a day. So that level of learning it's the structure to everything, to how everything starts at AP, so that everyone's skills can be top notch, so that they can participate with their whole class, that they're all together for science, for history, for literature, for poetry. They're with their peers at their age. You don't have to be a great mathematician to talk about history next to somebody.
Thank you.
So tell me how that works, with the school schedule. And by that, I mean, a third grader heading to the advanced math class, while the rest of the third graders are heading to some other activity or some other class.
So you notice I said that, that's a perfect example, thank you for using that one. When those third graders are going to math, and I only have 6 in that grade that need that class, I'm able to provide a class for 6, because we hire a full-time teacher and a full-time associate teacher, paraeducator, or other person for every class at the school. So when it's time to go to math, I now have double the number of spaces. And in our model, we also hire an additional 4 in a 3-month school. 4 people that only teach first band reading, second band reading, first band math, second band math. Or do you see those 4 teachers? They're teaching groups all day. So they're small
So
classes.
you're saying, for example, the 6 children that are going to the advanced class go to math at the same time, the other 94 students are also in there.
K through 3 band always goes to math together
But they're
at the same time. But we have 3 times as many spaces for them to go to with teachers.
So those 6 stellar third graders are not with 4th, 5th, 6th, and
No.
7th, 8th.
And because the way we band, the most you would be is you'd have 1st or 3rd, because we don't actually pull the kinder up. And then 4th through 8th, you could have 4th and 8th grade math kids together, it's possible. Doesn't really happen very often.
Dr. Moss, do you have a question?
Thank you. A question about the curriculum. So how much of the model described in the application is a direct replication of the APA programming in place at other charters in the network? And I'll start there. I'll just ask one question at a time. So how much of it is a replication of programming from other places?
90+%. I haven't delved into your Wyoming standards to the degree that I would know where the adjustments need to come out.
And that's the next question. Then, so how much flexibility then is there for adjusting or customizing the curriculum?
I think that probably answered it, right? So however much there needs to be, first of all, I have to look at the exact standards and see how much there needs to be, and they will be adequate.
So for instance, just as one specific example, I was looking, so Wyoming passed the Indian Education for All Act. And so I was looking specifically for where American Indian education was being addressed in K-6. And the Maya and the Aztecs were mentioned more often than Wyoming or regional tribes. And so I was like, okay, so how much can be adjusted?
In our 4th grade curriculum in Utah is where we study the American Indians, the American, Native Americans from Utah. So I assume it would probably mirror that, but I'd have to look and see where your requirements are. What grade? Is it a requirement?
It's actually all rates.
Oh, so that's what for all, yeah. And so we would be breaking that down and putting it into those units.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try, if I get allowed to do this, if you just went K through 3, just as a follow-up to my earlier follow-up, without having a building, would it be easier to start the school, or would you be able to find a facility in the region to start a school? While you're passing, and I understand the complication between the application of the alignment of the school systems in the district, I get that.
So just from a business owner, I have more people looking for rental properties. There's literally nothing commercial for rent. There's no facilities that are sitting vacant that we utilize. So I think it's just as easy to build K through 8 as it is to build K through 2, in my opinion.
Thank you. So, as this is the first school for APA in Wyoming, speaking as a state board member with the team here, on the curricula, the materials alignment with Wyoming Common Core, who will be making sure there's alignment? And you kind of said it a little bit with the earlier question, you know, how do you plan on doing that? And you've obviously been in other states, so can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yes, as you're probably well aware, with your backgrounds, that the Common Core State Standards, the national efforts to be 2012. I'm thinking what year Wyoming adopted them, I don't remember, but, was that right? And then we all adopted them pretty much. Utah adopted them, Nevada, but everybody adopted the standards. And so the differences on the alignments, I would call them tweaks. They're not huge, like varied things. They're small adjustments that have to be made. And once we have a charter, we will be able to expend those resources to go into we call them the 180 plans, which is just teacher plans in every grade and every subject. And you just have to go in and you plug them in and you say, oh, we need the standard taught, which is not in this state, but it is in this state. And then you develop lessons around it. And it's an intensive operation when you're thinking of 8 grades and all the subjects and all the standards. That is an intensive process. I don't want to minimize, but and that we normally wouldn't embark upon until a charter is given, because it's an expensive process too, because you're creating curriculum around all these things. But it's not a difficult one. They're not that diverse of standards.
Thank you. As a follow-up, and as being a member of the law, Mr. Masters and myself on RIDE, clearly understand that progressing folks and competency-based is something we also support, as well as the profile of a graduate for the state board. Are you looking at some of the things that we're trying to do in terms of getting credit for work experience? And have you done that in your time that you work to do that here?
We don't give credit for work experience in Utah at this time. They are starting a sort of apprenticeship programs that I think that will involve there. But I would probably defer to this group as to how they're going to direct what they would like their school to look like for the answer to that question.
I'll start with Alexis' thought. One of the things in terms of work experience that we've discussed, and this is what Gene Humphreys is the energy center of the American Preparatory. And that will prep kids for direction towards telepower or towards some part of UW's, and that's where the honorariums came. Some part of the UW engineering department and energy system or energy school. And that could be the environmental component of it. It could be solar, wind, nuclear, hydrocarbon, fusion. But we'd like to be able to prep kids to be skilled laborers and good professionals. And if we created an energy center, it makes a lot of sense to keep kids in the state, keep kids in our town, particularly certain to the energy department. So we are the energy company. So it's I've been encouraging. I'm not maybe I'll be one of the directors in the more permanent board, one so, but it's one that I like.
Sorry, board member Glenn, as I was taking a note right as the microphone came to me, and so, but in answer to your question, I would agree. The short answer to your question, would we consider work experience? And the answer is yes. What we do know is that college isn't necessarily a destination for all students, nor should it be that our systems are absolutely aligned to direct kids that way. We know that there are incredible livings to be made, and we actually know that there are significant deficiencies in the workforce, in the trades. And so, as my friend over there, Ms. Surratt, would say, are we open to considering things that benefit kids? Absolutely.
Come back to early discussions when we started this. Passion was to take it down to the energy sector. I have a passion for it because I currently chair minerals in the Senate, and that's all things energy. And I'm watching a change, and it's happening fast. And I think we have a prime opportunity to take this charter school and make that educational program that fits right into all the new energy in the valley.
Thank you. Have you had a chance to look at the profile of the graduate that the state has put out?
In my preparation for the application in June, I did read through whatever was available at that time. We have what's called portrait of the graduate, so I was trying to compare the portrait of the graduate, profile of the graduate, the effort, but I can't speak to any detail about it.
So I'll address this to the board. And, in reading the application, it looked like you've encountered substantial hurdles towards a public, traditional public school, you know. And I understand the logistics of moving kids back and forth to Aspen, for example. And so it looks to me like the charter school, kind of contrary to the normal model where you might be replacing a traditional school with a charter school. This is replacing a non-existent traditional school. And yet it looks to me also that part of that was the school facilities and getting the funding to build the school in this part of the Lincoln County too. And so that leads me to wonder whether the structure of the building that you're proposing to construct would be built to the same standards or similar standards as being promoted by the state for schools of this nature.
Maybe we start with the educational side and let a parent speak and then move to the building side there. Is that okay with you, sir?
Perfect. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Supervisors. Kelly Shackelford. So I believe that our community is unique. Star Valley is very long. And as a growing community on the north end, our children have been forgotten by the school district. I moved back here full-time in 2017. At that time, I was a sixth grader, second grader, and pre-K daycare child. So I moved from Charnier, where the elementary school was 5 minutes away from my house. And it was quite shocking to me to move to a community where I was all of a sudden sending my kids on a bus for over an hour in one direction while I went an hour in the opposite direction to work in Jackson. And I believe that that is the story for a lot of families now. Whether it's one parent or both parents working in Jackson and sending our kids an hour and a half, 2 hours in the opposite direction. So the need, in my opinion, has been great for a very long time. You know, Dave graduated from Starville High School and sat on a bus for a couple hours a day each way as well. So it's been that need for a very, very long time. My initial role in this was I was appointed by the mayor of Alpine to chair the Alpine Education Committee and try to work with our local school district to find a solution for our children. And unfortunately, government works slow, district regulations work slow, and it became very apparent that there was not going to be a solution for our children for at least another decade.
Let me follow up. That suggests that you're solving a problem for Lincoln County School District 2 while also solving your own building problem, which I think is admirable. But I don't know if anybody's considered, what if this charter school, and a certain small fraction do fail? What if this charter school fails? What's going to be the situation that arises there? Will there be a crying cue that there must be a school replaced here by Lincoln County too? Or has anybody considered that? I mean, I'm an attorney, and I sometimes think worst case situations.
Do you want to get to the
I mean, first of all, I think we're too determined to fail. I mean, we brought the best people on the team here, and we are young. I mean, I was born and raised here. I rode that bus from kindergarten through high school. My kid drove the bus from kindergarten through high school. The kindergartners here ride the bus from an hour. They get on the bus in Alpine. They get to Aetna. They change buses in the blizzard. They get on another bus. They go to Thane. They get there in an hour after leaving the house. Okay, that's your kindergartners. First grade, second grade, third grade. It's unacceptable. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to be more or less emotional, but it's very personal. I joined Lincoln County District Number 2 to get some relief. I've been 2 years on Lincoln County District Number 2 to get some relief for these kids. And I mean, I think that the other board members on the district have heard me. They don't know how to solve it. They don't, I mean, they compare us to Smoot. I mean, we ride the bus. That's the comparison. I mean, so, you know, I mean, as far as us, I mean, we are determined to not fail. I mean, failure is just not an option. That's my opinion.
Board Member Masters, just to add on to the comments from the board members down there. It was purposeful that we sought a K-8 because when you analyze, and we've been in constant contact with the district, I have regular conversations with the superintendent. What they're concerned with is a capacity issue at the secondary level, which was part of what drove our decision to go to a K-8 because it did provide some relief for the school district. And second, I would tell you when folks, and I think your question's a good one, what happens if it's not successful? And what I've always told people who have raised that question is, what happens if it is? What happens if we do succeed? What kinds of lives can we change? And so that's what drives it. To the second part of your question regarding facilities, as you know from reading my background from the application, I spent a lot of time with Director Carlson and Director McComey. Matter of fact, I was on the task force that helped them update those rules and adequacy standards. And so I can look you in the eye and tell you I believe in those standards. Now, I believe Ms. Carlson and Mr. McComey would tell you there is no obligation for this school to comply with that. But what I would tell you in answer to your, I wouldn't phrase it in the what if it fails, but what if something changes? What if, for whatever reason, it becomes a traditional K-12 building? So I wanted to let you know, and I will tell you the same thing that I told the community. We are going to work with Director McComey and Director Carlson to make sure that those design guidelines and adequacy standards are met, because none of us sitting here at the table know what that future is going to be. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'll settle for that. Yeah. And I will too.
So, Mr. Doherty, I understand, and I think this to me is gonna be an issue with some of the charters. I understand that you are not required to abide by size, you know, square footages and all that good stuff. But what has been apparent to me, and I think one of the things that people are gonna wrestle with is your major maintenance is gonna be based on the square footage you should have as a result of the number of students you have. So I think it's gonna get interesting when some of these schools decide that they could have a much larger school than what the facilities folks are gonna pay for major maintenance of.
Madam Chair, and I think you've seen that conversation starting to evolve in both the education interim committee as well as I believe at your last, I think you got some public comment at your last charter school authorizing board meeting to that effect. I think there was an individual who was concerned that his capacity was greater than, or he felt like it was less, but anyway, I think Mr. McComey raised about 5 or 6 different points in that vein, and so I think you're spot on, but I will leave you with this, Madam Chair, that the reason the adequacy standards and the design guidelines say what they do is because of, I won't call them mistakes, but things that we've learned in the past. If you buy a can of Hornet spray at the bottom it says do not use during daylight hours, I found out the hard way why they printed that on that can.
Thank you. So I'm gonna follow up sort of on where Mr. Masters was and come at it from a different angle. Is how did the Alpine Education Committee and the application team research that the educational service providers that you're going to work with.
I will tell you that Senator Dockstader and I probably started a bit of this mission when we met with Foster Freeze 45 years ago, different administration here in town. I've been a good friend and associate of Mr. Jenkins. I was very supportive of him going on the school board, and conversely, I was of the belief that this master plan, which was built in 2006 and has school siting for the town, and it goes back to Mr. Woodward, and even before that, I believe that this town absolutely needed to have a school. We don't have a school, we have a hospital, we have a large grocery store, we have a huge truck stop, we've got 2 new hotels. We don't have a school. I spent time with various people, and Mr. Driscoll, Senator Driscoll, President Driscoll, actually visited the APA in Salt Lake City in January 25th. I remember the date distinctly. We called him giddy. I would describe him as giddy as to what he saw at the school. And then I took 8 people from this town down to see that school. And Senator Dockstader drove down and noticed. And currently, I was talking with Charter One, Mitchell Schwab, who's a lawyer and counsel for Charter One, was phone out, like maybe his phone out, knows which. And he was working still as counsel. He gave us great counsel. Mr. Jenkins and I met with him. I spent time with Jessica, and now we spent a lot of time. But you know, at the end of the day, success, to your question, John, is as a CEO, it's driven by demand and people, and those people's determination, resilience, and we have that in this group. So failure is not an option to us, but if it did fail, was the town worse off? I don't think so, but I don't see that happen.
Really fascinating academic model. And the enthusiasm of this group is outstanding. I'm a product of a small school, LaGrange, 30 kids in high school, and 12 graduating class. I'm very familiar with kids riding 20 miles from their place to get on the bus to ride another 25 miles. That's going on today. So I have that appreciation, and this question is not to solicit negative comments about the school district now. But with all of that said, what's the primary reason a parent would apply for their kids to go to this new charter school?
As a parent, I think it's twofold, Mr. Chamberlain. I think number one, it's a value for choice in education. The local district, as we all know, it's one of the top 2 in the state. LCSD2 has wonderful scoring and support for their kids. But as a parent, I value choice and a choice of how far I want my kid to be away from me, what kind of an education I want my child to have. And then I lost my train of thought. I had 2 points.
It's all right, Jerry, you're younger than
I'll have to come back if I remember it, but what was the other point I was making? Yeah, so, okay, thank you. So, being that, and I understand that there are vast areas of Wyoming that have the same challenges that we do. We're a very rural state. But for our children to be able to participate close to home and for our parents to be able to participate. There have been many times with my kids in 3 different schools, 2 in Afton, 1 in Etna, or 1 in Thane, 1 in Etna, 1 in Afton, where I had to make the choice of which child I was going to support in the school play, or which child I was going to attend a parent-teacher conference to when I left my job. The district has made efforts to try to alleviate some of that, and I will give them kudos for that. But I truly believe that a community is centered around family. And I think that that is strong in our state. And I feel that without a school, our community is lacking that soul that draws people together. Especially with parents that a lot of times commute away from their children. And it's hard to tell your kindergartner that you can't attend their play because you have to work, as it is. And then to make it extra difficult to get to a school when you're having to drive 90 miles to get there. You leave Jackson and you try to get to Afton, it just adds that difficulty. So it's important to have a school in the community where we live. And I think it'll bring other opportunities.
Well, as a follow-up to that, of the students in the proximity that could attend the charter school, what percentage of those do you think will actually apply?
Honestly, you know, I'm not a professional PR person, so a lot of my work was grassroots, social media and just talking to people. And we did survey as the Alpine Education Committee, the Alpine Education Committee surveyed the community, and the vast majority, 83% of the respondents, we had about a 10% response for the population of the town. 83% said that having their children closer to home would benefit their family. So I feel that we do have strong community support. As a follow-up to that, there was a town hall last week surrounding the discussion of using town land for a possible school site. And we had 120 people show up to that meeting, and 80% of the people at that meeting also showed support for the school. So I believe that our community is ready and willing to support schools should we grant it.
I was just gonna follow up to that question, and I am very good. This is gonna be a tough question, but maybe it's the elephant in the room that I have to ask. If the legislative body and the governor supported the school in this area during this last session, would we be in this meeting? If the legislative body and the governor is supporting the school in this region by the state, which would you hoping, would we be in the room right now?
If they supported the school, Mr. Trustee, yeah, it's my understanding they did. I ran the legislation, and some people said, well, he'll veto it. And I closely watched, and it was at 10 o'clock on the last day of vetoes, and my phone rang. Mark Gordon answered it when he goes. And he says, Dan, I like your school. We just got to make sure that the charter board has the ground support, staff and everything, so we make it the whole program a success. I took that and we're moving forward with his support. We just got to make sure it's successful. It's my understanding that we are. That we got it where we were. Senator Driscoll and I stopped in and visited with him during an energy meeting over there. And he says we're getting it where it needs to be. And it helps because we have professionals like you on the board vetting the system. I sense we're moving forward with his support and other support.
The question, thank you very much. The question I had was a little bit more towards the budget, and you're looking at a pretty wide range, and chances are it's going to be pretty good enrollment from what I'm hearing, at least the expectation. But the application talked about, I believe it was 90 to 270 range. Can you talk a little bit about the that variance and really the funding to support that kind of a range of students? How do you feel about that in the first year, and how will that be successful if it's only 90?
Thanks for asking. Us finance folks don't give times. We have set up a very conservative budget model. So we've looked at several aspects. We look at enrollment, and yeah, we've got very stepped enrollment. So we looked at an ideal enrollment, and if you look at the budget, it's a 290. Then we look at a break-even enrollment, and that break-even enrollment is probably down in the lower 100 to 150 break-even. I do want to say kudos to the state of Wyoming for the funding model that you have set up for education and for charter schools. It's really a great model, and I think it'll be a successful model that allows us to do what we need to do to flex as we need to adapt to a changing enrollment. Like we just opened the school in Cedar City, and we had a target down there. Just to give you an idea, we had a target. We started out at a target of 275, and then we had to adjust that down to 250. Now we started school. It's a brand new place, brand new concept. We dropped down below that. So, but we were ready. We understood that could happen, and so now we're going to build that back. And we hope in the first year it's a building year. So our budget model is assume the most conservative funding, figure. We even discounted that very conservative figure. So we're on the very, very low end of our funding projections. And then we've maintained our expense side to staff the whole school. We feel like there's enough flexibility in that budget that we can move from that ideal of 290 down into the 100s, mid 100s, and still be successful and provide an exceptional education within the financial model. Our base funding model do not anticipate, just to give you an idea, we did not anticipate any federal funds for grants, which we aggressively seek those out. I can tell you that in our school system, those provide somewhere around 13% of that, 15% of that. So we didn't include that at all here. In addition, there's the things that Wyoming does that are so wonderful, the capital improvements. That's a separate funding. Special education is kind of separate funding model, and even transportation just down the road. So we didn't even work those in because we said, let's just do this bare bones. Can we open and provide the education model that we want to with a very bare bones, very conservative ADM model? And so I feel like we've achieved that and we have the flexibility there.
For the group, I've been to Cedar City. Can you just tell us roughly what the population of Cedar City is?
35,000 is the total population of the area.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna ask a question about teacher recruitment and retention. In my position at the University of Wyoming, in the College of Education, I sat on the state commission that was developed by the Wyoming Department of Education for teacher retention and recruitment. And so it's a significant issue, particularly in high needs areas of special education, typically science and mathematics at the secondary level. So can you talk us through your plan for recruiting high quality leaders and teachers, considering the remoteness and also the economics of this area?
We've had lots of discussions about this. It came up in like first meeting, second meeting, every meeting. Not necessarily from this board because they recognize it, but from the public, because there's this feeling it's just too expensive to live there. No one's going to come and teach there. So then I started asking more questions about all these teachers. People keep telling me live in Alpine but work away. So we have teachers around here, people who have been teachers. I also started asking questions about your homeschool population, and it appears there's a fairly healthy homeschool population in this area. And a lot of not a lot, we have found in the areas we've worked in that those populations sometimes house teachers that are not teaching, those homeschool parents oftentimes. And so in our experience over 21 years, we have pulled back into teaching a lot of people who we're waiting for a model like ours, who love what we're doing, who wanted the classical approach, who like our data-driven, this is what you're going to teach. We kind of provide the teachers what they're going to teach and when they're going to teach it. And we even provide them a portion of the how, with then flexibility for them to implement their own personalities into the classroom. And that takes a ton of pressure off teachers for lesson planning. instead of spending their time planning lessons, our hope is that they'll use our 21-year vetted lessons that are written by teachers, and that are every single year, we're looking at the student outcome data and we are tweaking our lessons to improve them. The teachers are doing this work. So a new teacher coming in gets this beautiful menu of lessons that are tested. They know exactly what to teach. They even know when they're supposed to teach it within a few days range. They're gonna give the same test as all the other teachers teaching that subject. Then they're gonna sit as colleagues and they're going to look at the data and go, how did you do that? Let me tell you how I did this. So we've developed this, I guess it's unique. I don't work in the traditional public system, so I don't know. But it's a very robust collegial system for teachers, and they love it. And I suppose it's true that there would be a lot who don't love it, but they actually don't come because we tell them about this from the beginning. And so we attract a certain kind of teacher that I think aren't being recruited necessarily into the public traditional schools. And so all I can say is we've never had a problem attracting and retaining our teachers. I don't know that. Do you have our retention? Is it how much? 75%. We are in a very high transient area where we have lots of people leaving to go to graduate school. We track every teacher. We track why they left, whether it's to have a family, whether it's to go get advanced education. And we feel super good about our reputation for teacher training. We were named one of the best of Salt Lake for, what's it called, top workplaces in Salt Lake, because our teachers' surveys that they do on their employees love teaching for us, and so they give us a great score every year. So I know that there's challenges, and I don't want to minimize the challenge of how expensive it is to live here, or any other challenge. But I think we've got a menu of attractive options for teachers that will help us to find those 9 teachers we need.
I would add one final point, that our challenges first, we intend to be an employer of choice. Second, our challenges are identical to those faced by every school district in this area. And so our challenges will not be unique or different from what Teton County or Lincoln County is grappling with today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
As a former teacher and school administrator, one of the most challenging things about instruction is to how you evaluate. And what process or method will you use to evaluate teaching?
Did not think I was going to enjoy this session so much. Thank you for letting me share. So I look at teaching as a profession, and the professionals within that, they need information to know how they're doing, and they need it all the time. Well, they can't get that if it's blind, and so what we do is, if you're teaching, I'll just do something simple. You're teaching 4th grade, and you put your science test. Everyone's gonna get that same test within the same week. The cardiovascular system, let's say. Once those scores go in, it's a database, and within every single month, the teachers of all the 4th grade teachers meet together in person or on Zoom. Most of them can be in person, but are on Zoom, and anyone who wants to join us, even our biggest teachers joined us for years, right? And they look at, they say, how did I do my kids do on the cardiovascular test, and how did yours do? And we actually put a ranking right up on the screen as the percent proficient, highest to lowest. We put some impacting variable information in there as well, which is who's the most recent teacher, who had the most experience, who had the highest proportion of ELL students, who had we let them look at the data in context of their own performance as professionals. And by doing that, is that an evaluation? Well, it is, right? Because they have a leader there who's looking, going, we need to get some coaching in. So then we go directly to a coaching model whenever we see deficiencies or big differences in our teachers' performance. We go to a coaching model, which is a side-by-side coaching in the classroom. We send teachers around, either high-performing teachers or administrators, go right into the classroom and help that teacher. And then we have a 4-stage coaching system, and it's color-coded because we love colors in education. And we go from purple to pink to yellow to green, and every teacher comes in on purple. and they're getting eye to eye coaching side by side as they progress throughout that. Now, is that evaluation? No, but that's what leads to the summative evaluation at the end of the year, where we look at all of it. We look at the student scores, we look at the parent satisfaction, which we survey annually, and then we look at the professionalism as part of our evaluation.
So 75% retention rate sounds high.
It
Congratulations.
does for teachers.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've never compared it.
75% retention sounds high, given the environment the last couple of years, so congratulations. But on that 25%, how many of them were stayed purple for a long period of time?
Yes, you're gonna sound this. If you're purple in November of your first year, then you have an intensive coaching. It doesn't mean anything really, it just means that you're a high repetition learner and we need to give you more repetitions and opportunities to improve. If you're still on purple at the end of third term and you're a professional licensed teacher, we're gonna go a step further and probably do some counseling. Meaning there's probably some resistance. Usually there's resistance if they can't do it. It's not because they can't. It's because they won't, right? And so if they remain on purple and we find it's a willingness that's a philosophical problem, we'll usually separate at the end of that year.
We have approximately 6,500 students across the state involved with CTSOs. Our legislators were generous this year, providing additional funding for our CTSOs. In your application, I didn't see any mention of any of our CTSOs. So my question is, was that an oversight or was that intentional, or do you plan to integrate any one of our CTSOs, our current technical service organizations, into your plan? Thank you.
The career technical student organization, or
Well, yeah, student service organization.
so there's a,
So the one that we all know about, that's on the.
Yes, yes. So I would look to the board honestly for direction once we get to high school development. At this point, I mean, the board would drive the development of the school. And then they would instruct us as to what they would like to see at that point. At this point, we put general information, like I said, in with some courses and some things like that. But I wouldn't speak as an authority at all to what your career techniques student organizations would ask us, but the board might have an idea already, I don't know.
I don't know that I'm gonna say that we're there, trustee, I know what you're saying. We gotta have the technical education in there, because we live in a state where we can instantaneously put people to work. We can send them to the patch in our co-op that I oversee. They need 2 years of Western and we can put them on a power pole. I agree entirely, and that's, if I have anything to say beyond honorary chairs, I'm gonna push these folks to get that done.
You guys are in trouble.
Thank you, Senator Dossler. I have a question related to that then. You mentioned the energy center. So would you describe that a little bit more than how that will interface, or how that interfaces with the school? Is the energy center part of the school, or is that an external piece?
Trustee Buss, we want to make it part of it. We want to make it so that it's integral. That's why I brought the TerraPower people down, in addition to the president of UW and the president of Western. We want to work with them in every facet. That has to be developed, but believe me, that's our emphasis. If we miss this opportunity, we're sitting in Lincoln County, first nuclear in Wyoming. If we miss this opportunity, it's our fault.
Thank you, and I think that also then ties back into my question about the curriculum, because as I was looking through the curriculum proposed, it was fairly generic, and I didn't see the energy connections, and that's why I was.
First place it is in giving the skills, the kids the solid skills in the beginning, right? And then as I sat with the gentleman from the power company, I don't remember his name, I'm sorry. He came to the dinner, Terra Power, but I don't remember his name. He's over their education system, I think, right? So we had a wonderful opportunity to talk, Mark, yes, and about how we can create a partnership and provide these kids who already have strong skills. How do we get their interest? That's my big point, is how do we capture their interest into going and pursuing something like this? And how do you create partnerships where kids are having experiences in the field that get them excited about doing more of that in summers, in week-long summer in immersive experiences. That's how I envision this energy center developing, is to give the kids the skills in the school. That's my job. Make sure they have the solid skills. But then the opportunities are the partnership with these companies where they can go in and have the immersive experiences that will hopefully capture their attention, because that is actually our biggest challenge, is getting kids to see a future themselves being there doing those things. So.
Thank you.
I personally could see someone trickling some of these things that are needed on, not waiting till high school. Let's trickle them down into 4th, 5th grade. I mean, the statistics will show you that if you don't get girls interested in this kind of stuff early, so let's start early at a maximum middle school. Start integrating, finding some way to integrate some of this material into the curriculum. And the state is always willing to work with you in terms of, I mean, I will just tell you that probably my biggest disappointment with my own daughter was that we had Project Lead the Way, which had just started when Christy was in high school. Well, unfortunately, Project Lead the Way only gave credit under CTE. Well, Christy didn't have any for CTE. And so consequently, she never took any of those classes. And I find that to be a huge disappointment. But what's happened over time is the Department of Ed has become much more willing to work on trying to take a course like Project Lead the Way and do science, math, whatever. So I just encourage you to think about that in that context. So, you know, going back to the teacher thing, I will tell you, that was my biggest worry. You know, sitting on Teton County School District's board for 20 years and watching, you know, attrition rates of 14, 15% and people leaving because they can't afford housing. I'm a little curious as to what you view your have you thought about what your compensation package is going to be? Because I know Teton County School District, for example, their compensation package is 88% of their budget. And so that's sort of a huge chunk to me. So, you know, and maybe I missed it in the application.
You're busy, because I'm assuming what you're asking me, what do we base our budget on with regard to pay and teachers? Is that kind of what your question was? What was the
What
budget?
is your compensation?
Yes.
plan? You know, where are you going to start in terms of teacher salaries and, I don't know whether you're going to call them paraprofessionals or teaching aides or whatever you're going to call them as a second set of hands in the classroom, but,
If you look at our budget and you look at teacher salaries on that page, the first budget page, the projected amount was $823,000 for 9 teachers.
So.
We tried to use the scary numbers that everyone kept giving us there, and be reasonable. And Utah actually has also increased their salaries over the last several years. So that's the number. I don't know if that's helpful.
Is that a salary number or is that a staff?
That's the
number?
salary.
Ambitious budgets for benefits and open because there's a, I think a little bit of an open question about retirement, which is a big part of a large part of the decision. So in the state of Utah, we fund that through a 401k program, but I think it may be different here. So like I say, we're just working together. We want to understand how that's going to flow. We feel like we budgeted to account for that and for pretty significant level of benefits.
The state of Wyoming has, contribution requirements, I believe, of state retirement.
Yeah.
I know Teton County exceeds that by several percentage points, and so in essence, the contribution to the teacher's salaries is, I don't know, like 12.65% or something like that.
We did look at that when we were, assessing the differences here, and that you do have a required program here for teachers that they would be involved.
I just want to give you a fair shake of being able to attract teachers.
And we have a very supportive board who's committed themselves as well to making sure we don't lose any great teachers for pay. So we'll see how that goes.
One other solution that's come up in some of the discussions I've been a part of with the superintendents is building teacherages. I was just curious if that's anything that this board has considered. And if you're not sure what a teacherage is, it's not basically housing that's provided by the school. When I first taught, I taught in a rural community, a ranch community in New Mexico, about 500 folks, and they had a teacherage so that the teachers could just move into those. And I think I paid $126 a month for that too. That's pretty sweet. That was 1989.
Remember that?
Board member Buss, certainly no options are off the table, and we have thought about transitional housing types and teacherages and other tools that might help people with housing affordability. Certainly, as indicated a moment ago, it's our expectation that there are a certain number of teachers. Now, they won't stay in the system forever, but at this moment, there are a certain number of teachers who are driving up the canyon on a daily basis to teach and would be delighted to should not put that many miles on their car. So those will be the initial folks that we want to reach out to, but yeah, it's not just us, it's Game and Fish, it's Wyoming, it's all of us who are struggling with this beautiful part of the state that people wanting to come here and result in this.
So I was the former owner of Jenkins Lumber across the street, and we had about 35 employees, plus or minus. And we worked really hard at employee retention, and I mean, I think that there are a lot of people. I mean, we get employees from Thane, from Alpine, and when I need new employees, I already knew who they were in Jackson, and I would go up there and say, "You guys tired of driving that yet?" And they'd say, "I'll be a little bit less to not drive up there." And I have them waiting in line. I mean, I do think we have to. People are tired of driving that canyon, and they want to be part of their own community, and they want to work here, they want to live here. It's time.
So I have a question. I noticed that there's requirement for uniforms, and I think all charter schools expect a great level of parental involvement. And I'm worried that we have a tendency to screen out potential students because they are in single parent families or parents with unusual work hours or low income households that can't afford some of the requirements that maybe for meals or transportation. And I'm wondering how you have, as a board, looked at that, and do you have any plans to, for example, scholarship kids or anything like that to help them with those types of challenges?
Everyone else talk over it.
And when we say challenges, we mean the challenges over and above what is funded in the traditional public school, which is uniforms and that kind of thing.
Our experience has been that we want to be welcoming to everyone. But honestly, all of our schools are in close proximity, or somewhat in close proximity to another school, so this is a very unique situation. It's a unique situation as a 20-year veteran of charter schools. Like, I've been in this in multiple states. I've never been in a situation where there is absolutely no school in a town. Which is what my great interest is that I use my heart and breaks for these parents who are telling me their stories. And I feel like we must have a school here. So I certainly don't want to dissuade anyone from coming. I want everyone to want to come to the school and feel like it is their home, their school. So we're gonna have to do the things that will help everyone feel welcome. But I don't think those things are maybe the typical things you think are going to deter someone, for example, uniforms. Every year we do a survey, our Title I schools, our rural schools, our suburban schools, all the same answer, which is the parents overwhelmingly say, thank you for the uniform. It makes our life so much easier in the morning, and it's less expensive than my kids wanting me to shop for clothes for them. So uniforms is not an elitist looking thing, actually. In other countries, we know it to be the standard. In the United States, it's getting to be more so. So I don't think uniforms is what would keep someone away from the school. I'm concerned about the lunch program. I would love to see a lunch program started as soon as we can. The challenge we have in charter school development overall is the cart before the horse problem, which you guys are going to deal with constantly as you listen to these schools. Well, have you done this? Well, we haven't done that because we don't have a charter yet. And once we have a charter, we could go back to the cart and horse all the time. The school lunch is one of those situations where we start off with asking parents to bring a lunch the first year. We start assessing our free and reduced lunch counts. We start looking at the feasibility, the financial feasibility of implementing our program, and then we see if it's possible to get that going. All of our schools in Utah, except one, has the school lunch program under the national school lunch program. But it's not always possible or feasible, honestly, depending on what your parents prefer. And so it'll take us time. That's a barrier you mentioned, and uniforms. Is there any others that?
Thank you. Parent with unusual work hours.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up. Our parent involvement requirements have nothing really to do with coming to school. I know that's everyone's vision of how we want parents to be involved in school, but how we want parents to be involved in school, we're very clear about this. Please have your child to school on time every day. Please have them be in the proper clothing. Please make sure they have food to eat. And every night, please make sure you are reading their learning plan with them, which is a document that they have to actually spend 5 to 10 minutes reading with their child daily, that document, reviewing what they did, and ensuring the homework's done and signing every day. That is our parent involvement component that's most important. For parents who can come and help with the spelling bee or do a wonderful science project with our kids, we love that. It's so wonderful. But that's not the actual standard parent involvement. The parent involvement is focused on, is your child reading? Are you reading with them? Are they doing their homework? Are they coming to school every day?
Well, you want breastfeed, you want fed, you want.
And we want those, yes, yes.
But what about a parent who works, let's say, a 3 midnight shift? You know,
The child, that's all as the child, as the parent, the child is asleep when the parent gets home. I mean, are we selecting out some kids that really need this?
Well, no, I mean, what we do ask them to please find someone. So oftentimes it's an older sibling. I mean, we are one of the most diverse and highly poverty schools in Utah. So I have people working 3 jobs, but we still hold the same standard that child's attention, the family's attention to education needs to be a priority. And so someone needs to be assigned to go over the learning plan. And we do love watching as in our system, our juniors and seniors in high school are shepherding their younger brothers and sisters. They're signing their learning plan, they're reading with them. Education becomes a family thing. But I don't think it tells them not to come. It's more of a, how do we do it differently when we have that problem? you are welcome here, and we'll help you find a different way to do it. We also do something called, we do 2 dismissals a day, and this is maybe getting too much into the weeds, but we do a 20-minute differential in our dismissals for that. That's one of the purposes. So that the first group of kids goes out and the car line is going, and instead of having people wasting their time for 20 minutes while they're waiting, we keep kids back who maybe don't have a homework helper at home. And their sibling might come down and do it with them, or maybe a mentor from 6th grade will come to the 2nd grade and they will do their reading with that student and go over some of their homework things with them. And we do a 20-minute extra time at the end of the day, and we call it extended day for them. So we try to work with families, but I don't think it's a barrier just because they're not available.
And this question, hopefully you'll reflect the opinions of the community, professionals in education, all of the other supporters, legislators, everyone. In an ideal world in school, there's no discipline, not a problem. In an ideal situation. But again, as a past administrator, you spend a sizable amount of time dealing with discipline problems. In this model, how would you, what would a student have to do to be suspended, expelled, disenrolled, whatever term you want to use within the school system?
Did you visit the school? You did, and
I'll say that. Say what you're gonna say now, I'll tell you what I saw.
okay. Because it's hard to describe it and how people can really understand, but we have a very, my background is in psychiatric nursing and actually adolescent development, mental development, which was state hospital for mentally ill, challenged boys from 12 to 18. That was my original course. And then I had 7 children of my own, and I started going to school. And I started going to school with them sometimes, and I'd be like, what's going on here? This is interesting. This is great. This is bad. Anyway, that's kind of how I got launched. But everything I built into this model is based on these psychological principles of student motivation. Because it's all about motivating people to do things that helping them see they want to do something that maybe they thought they didn't want to do. And so we use a really structured program of teaching students the precise requirements in every setting. I know this sounds like a lot, but in 1st grade, you have like 8 settings. You have teacher direction, you have hallway lineup, you have recess, you have lunchtime, you have these settings. We teach specific behaviors. They're called CHAMPS. It's at the University of Oregon. It's a beautiful program. It's all based on positivity and rewards and motivation. And so once the kids know everything they're supposed to do in every setting and how to perfectly engage and like participate, we find that the corrections we make are through ignoring those who aren't and focusing on the ones who are. And then so first we teach them a lot, and then we ignore the bad behaviors in the beginning as we focus and reward the behaviors we want to see. And that covers about 97% of your behaviors right there. All the kids want to be there, want to be participating. Then you're talking about your outliers, maybe for reasons of challenge, of actual diagnoses, of IEPs, of students who have behavior challenges. Then you've got that percentage of students, and you have to have a really great plan in place so that the learning is never disrupted, but they're always motivated to want to join the learning. And they sometimes will be separated. So we do have a system where if they can't remain in the environment successfully after the certain number of reminders, then they will get a counseling session, or they'll have we call it reset moment, or whatever it is they may need according to their personal plan. So our kids don't just have a personal behavior plan if they're on an IEP, but pretty much anyone who falls out of the system gets a special attention on how I'm going to get back into that classroom. Am I going to participate? We do suspend students if there's physical violence. We are pretty much, if you hit a child, you will be suspended at our school. If you hit each other, if you use your hands, feet, or objects to harm another individual, you will be suspended at our school. And there really is not an exception to that at our school that I can think of. Maybe on a certain IEP, there might be. But we do suspend still. And by having that really clear line for kids and parents, it's very rare that kids cross it. Once they know hands, feet, and objects cannot touch another human in a way that would at least be interpreted to be harmful, they will be sent home for a day. It was not a long suspension. We also do another thing called parent intervention, which is found to be very, very effective. And when parents are really working with us and they really want their child to succeed in their child, they're getting calls because their child's been sent out. We invite the parent in to spend time side by side with the student. It's a reteaching. It's like, we've been trying to teach him or her, let's use her, and she isn't getting it. Do you want to come and help us teach her? And we find that kids are highly motivated to not have their parents sit next to them in school. And so they come for an hour, that's usually enough. And so we do have, I would call it a very structured environment, but it's really fun. We focus on fun and being so much fun that all the kids want to stay in the system. And I'll turn the microphone over to them.
What a point, we gotta wrap up here, folks, but I took the opportunity to go down and see this. Talked to Senator Driscoll about it, he'd been down and seen it, and we went down, the us went down. For personal reasons, I choose not to ride the aircraft because I see the conflict. So I use my own time and dine my own car to go down and meet these folks. And pick them up and drive them around down there. And I walked away from that and texted my colleague, Senator Driscoll, and said, wow. You know, this is a level of education that I've not seen. I can speak that because in my occupation, media, I spend a lot of time in schools. We got good schools, but I was also in the education committee. We traveled around the state studying schools. This is impressive. One other side note before we close, somebody's gonna close out for it.
Well, Senator, we don't have, we have the ability to continue to.
I like that.
go forward. We have the, public conference, hearing at 5 o'clock, but,
One other side note, Madam Chair, if I could please. Maybe it's my closing comment. I put a lot of time and energy into this community over 40 years. I told you that in the opening statement. Water, sewer, roads, all that, countless trips to Cheyenne. And in the past 3 years, even what I call a mini hospital, you have a chance to see it across again. Connected with a very successful rural healthcare program called Star Valley Health. And I brought 3 governors into tour because I said, we've reinvented rural healthcare, 3 state-of-the-art surgical suites, ortho surgeons, general surgeons, and 7 family practitioners, all in this valley. One end is taken care of, now we're taking care of the other end, and we're in the process of expanding this, what I call a mini hospital, with surgical services and all the services that are one end will be offered there too. And that feeds into the importance of the charter school. That feeds into the importance of having healthcare and healthcare services right next to a school. Summary, it's not just about school, Madam Chair and board members, it's about an education program that complements our Western Wyoming Community College, our university, and all that's happening in the tech world, where it's about the education. And just ask for favorable support as you go back and look at this. Thank you.
thank you. To back up on the discipline, I'd like to just make one editorial comment, is that, I think we want to ensure that there's enough commonality between the policies for discipline and the punishment for those disciplines, so that you don't end up overlooking something which would be considered an expulsion in the traditional school. And you don't need to respond, you know, we just want to make sure that this isn't unloading the unwanted when they aren't performing or the discipline isn't right or whatever. We just want to ensure that that's the case. And Joe has another.
So I believe most of the people in the room are familiar with the Hathaway Scholarship, and our legislators had great foresight in 2006 to fund the program. And it's a great pathway for, again, students to attend a university and even more importantly, a community college. So as I look at your course sequencing, and so I'll get to my question. Well, my question is this: to qualify for the Hathaway requires 4 years of either, initially it was just a foreign language, but we're able to get it changed. So either 4 years of either foreign language or tech education or fine arts. 2 of those must be sequenced. So as I look at this, I may be looking at it incorrectly, I see in your languages, there's a Latin 1 and 2, which would qualify as 2 years. You don't have anything in career and technical education. Fine and performing arts, 1.5 credits, but no sequencing. So if I'm looking at this correctly, and I know this, you're down the path later on in the high school piece, but I think this is important to bring up now. Again, if I'm looking at this correctly, I don't see in this plan that a student would qualify for any level of the pathway.
Madam Chair, Board. So this is, that's one of those things we call a small tweak that will be added. So we're very, we're hoping we get approved and we can, thank you for that comment. That's very, very, very important for these kids as a, I'm a former, I think I got pathway as well. So, anyway, yeah, I mean, thank you for that. We will definitely want to make those tweaks, so.
I guess one thing I think we need to put out on the table is special ed. Tell us about special ed services. How do you differentiate with the special ed and the individual education plan for each student? And I don't mean an IEP, I mean an individualized education plan for students.
So I think you're asking, because all of our students have level learning and they're doing the ILPs, individual learning plans, meaning every student basically is on their own kind of track in a way. But what's the differentiation with IEP and what do we provide for that? And we're lucky in the model because our leveled groups do provide us a way without stigma to have our special ed kids have, if they need more of a, what would be a traditional pull-out for reading, for example. Well, they can go to their reading class like everyone else and have their reading at their level, which is an IEP service for them, without any stigma because everyone's going. So that's the really good news. Now, are there a lot of things beyond those kinds of goals, reading goals and math goals in an IEP? Yes. There's behavior goals, oftentimes there's speech and there's services and all the different services, OT, PT. Those will all be provided just as required by a student's IEP, documented and aligned with the requirements of IDEA. Our school actually started in 2003 with 15 members of our governing board of parents, not governing board, sorry, the initiating committee. And I think half or more had special needs kids. I think it was like 9. And the purpose of the school was really starting out, in my background, having been as a nurse, we were focused on how do we create a school that's a lot more integrative, truly has a least restrictive environment, letting the kids be together. And so we did create that. But that is not to say that we are like a mainstream school where you just push the kids into the general environment and they're not actually getting their individual needs met as well. So they would still have to be pulled out for their services like speech, PT, OT, whatever's required in the IEP.
Thank you. I really appreciate the keen interest in having a school in the area and what you have gone through and what your sons and daughters have gone through. So over time, I hope we get a school for you one way or the other. My question is, we're talking about initiating a charter school and we don't have a school. We don't have a thank you. And, we've already been here with one of the 3 charter schools we've had. They just couldn't get that facility and they really had to delay the opening of that school. So can you talk a little bit about the school structure, building, the funding, and then the timing and how that relates to how we're going to get started at LEAP in 2025. That seems to be a little bit quick, even with the third person you don't know about saying it.
Anybody's first of all, I want to apologize. I'm not technically proficient enough to know when I turned off my phone and didn't turn on the watch. So my apologies because it was ringing. The funding of the school has so far been by private donations and a couple of individuals in particular, which I'm one. And the team of people that you see has been developed very carefully. You asked, what would you feel like? What if the worst thing happened and this failed? I'd be damn embarrassed to say. At this stage of my life, this has one objective, and that is to be a showcase and make you guys all proud. And I've said that to Ms. Debbie Felder, I've said that to the governor, Cindy Boxstetter. The objective is not just to make you proud, but to make members of this community proud, parents of this community. And I'd also like to make myself proud, because this is probably one of the last big things that I'm going to do in terms of the exercise that I have it takes. Got 5 kids myself, doctorate. And I said I have 5 kids myself. I've been through dyslexia in my family, of which I was one, yet I have an honors doctorate. Education has been a passion. I was a school teacher, on and on and on. And to get back to your question, the financing of this, to me, is not complex. We've had good resources for the working capital. That's got to transition soon because the cost of this goes up by the day. When we move into the financing of the building, there's USDA financing. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Casey could tell you a lot about it. And we're well down the road with the USDA financing. So it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But we have multiple options to deal with, and that's my job is, you've got to have options. You can't have one that can break and fail. And so when I say multiple options, we've initiated conversations with energy companies, institutions, private corporates, and then private individuals. And the objective will be to get the building up, a new building. And yes, I do like to dream. In August of 25 is tough. But if we were to accelerate and get an approval, the approvals that we need from the town and the freedom to act from the town and the approvals from you all, that's not inconceivable, it's aggressive. But I've done aggressive things that I've been successful at and not successful at. But if the fail safe is, how about January of next year? That's okay. And then there's takeout financing. And the takeout financing can come in multiple ways. Could be USDA, it has to be USDA in terms of you can't get financing until the school is complete. The other one would be bond financing, municipal or revenue. And the APA group, Ms. Sheree, they've got $100 million on the bench. They've done millions of dollars on financing. And we had Jim Lanford from the Blair Company, who's done their bond financings in the past, or APA's bond financings in the past. So we've opened up multiple channels and multiple options. And we'll pursue the one that's most cost effective, and we'll pursue the one that we can actually accomplish.
Thank you.
I have to really apologize to our consultants. They came in, as we were sort of introducing ourselves, and I did not take the time to introduce them. But these are 2 consultants from NASCA, Gina and Heather. And I think I'm going to turn the mic over to them to see if there's any questions that they feel they would like to ask.
Hi, thank you. Heather Wendling, the Vice President of Consulting Services for NASDA, which is the National Association of Charter School Authorizers. We've been supporting the board as they've been getting up and running, and we also led the review panel comprised of many different individuals from different divisions within the WDE. So just a few things that we want to, sort of make sure that we leave this conversation today with the fullest possible picture to help inform our recommendations to the board. So a couple of questions for APA and then a couple of questions specifically also for you all as board members. Can you, someone from APA, can you just kind of explain for all of us the size and the general structure of your organization and whatever process that you use to determine you have the internal capacity to support an additional school in a new market? I'm sorry, is that not loud enough?
No,
I'm sorry, sure, yeah. Just a little bit of an organizational overview, like staff, number, size, and whatever your internal process is for determining, do we have the capacity to support another school in a new market? Whatever that process is typically like for you.
Sure, we have about 40 employees. We have departments of HR, finance, facilities, operations, academics and compliance. We do feel like we have the capacity. We have contracts start and stop constantly. We have the Nevada contract that start and stop. Our departments can handle additional capacity. We do constantly. Did that answer?
It does, yes. So a little bit of a follow-up onto the contracts with your different entities. Describe the various management arrangements you have with the schools in your portfolio, and what is your intention for the school in Alpine?
So in our application, I think we have a listing on. I have marked that.
No, we have the listing. Just
Yeah,
what
I
is-
wanted to refer to it, so I
Okay,
can
perfect.
tell you the different ones, what pages. Oh. Okay. So we've done, all different things, and it just comes from basically the need around us. When we opened our school, in 2003, charter schools were brand new in Utah, and, a lot of people loved our school, immediately wanted their kids to go there, but our wait list would not allow it. And so we had parents saying, you are from the school ministers. So in the early days, a lot of these contracts were us trying to find out how can we help them start with, we help them with the application process, or we gave them our curriculum, or whatever pieces they wanted. We just kind of supported those schools. And so those were temporary contracts. They were never intended. I did not start out as a management company. I was a mom, had 7 kids. I worked in 2 different charters, 3 before I came to Utah, and decided I think I need to do it. So we opened our own school, and then I became the chairman of the state association of charter schools in like our 3rd year of operation. We were a fledgling little association, and so through that we offered services instead of me doing it on a contract. The association kind of started offering services. But then there was some that wanted like a whole thing. 3 years, we want you for at least 3 years. Will you please do, so we did 3 years. And then we would exit again. My focus has been on developing our system of schools that we're we call it comprehensive school management. And those are the schools that you see, we talk about in our test scores and things like that. And I wanted to keep my focus on improving academic outcomes for kids. And it's very difficult to really do that carefully if you're trying to just expand. That's all you're doing is laying schools down, right? That's never been our mission. And so for us to get a group of schools like Vegas open and leave them is not looked at as a bad thing for us. We're expanding school choice for families, high quality school choice for families. We're not necessarily expanding APS, not actually our vision of the world. And so now we opened the school to the small group of families in Cedar City, and then we have been approached by this group here. And we just look carefully at whether we think there's the passion, the drive, and the appetite for a high performing academic school. It's a different thing. And this group, I was very impressed because they not only need a school desperately in their locale, they also have a really strong appetite for a high performing academic school, which is, we want to make sure that matches good with us, right? But we don't look at it as a failure to have contracts. So our contracts are very flexible. You've seen it in the application that they have a way to break the contract if they want to go a different direction. At the end of the school year, it's not usually something we're doing in the middle of the year, but we're just not trying to set us down and say, this is it. But we want to have enough resources allocated to make sure they get a really successful start and then see where it goes from there. And we're committed to stay as long as they want us. I do want to say that.
That was gonna be my follow-up question.
Okay, there we go.
All right, so I think two questions for the board members. And Dr. Funk, I think you were mentioning in your comments before, I think I was hearing a thread about accountability, right? So how, as a board, will you ensure that APS is fulfilling its promises and all of the things that, will enable your school community to be successful?
I missed one word that you used there. You said you were referring to
Accountability.
account. Thank you. And I'm sitting right here. First of all, compliance and accountability. So these are Caroline's words. We have a strong vision for what we hope the school to be. However, we also recognize that our school responsibility is to ensure the school is compliant with all laws, rules, and apply Wyoming public education that apply. They're as responsible as any other schools. It is a public school. And in terms of the board, integrity, effectiveness, accountability, first of all, the accountability that's really important to the state emanates from APA. And what's important to the community is that APA is teaching its kids and performing and is creating successful, hopefully well-educated kids that enter our skilled labor set in university, community college, doesn't matter. That board right now, if I were to start going down the names, Dave Jenkins, 30 years here, Jeremy Larson, 10, 12 years on city council, Melinda Dorian, interior decorator, longtime person in the valley, husband is a big excavator contractor here. Probably I've done a lot of construction in this valley, probably one of the most difficult people I've ever met. Kelly Shackelford, you know about her mother, local. Robert Hagmore, one of the founders and board members of Miracle Grow, and has been a great supporter of this initiative. Rod Jensen was on the banking commission, the head of the banking commission or association in Wyoming. Bank of Star Valley, Jeff Doherty. And then there are other people who have joined us since we provided you with that board. This is not really a formal board. This is an inaugural, we call it the inaugural board. But from that group, you will easily see the seeds of those who will be great board members and responsible board members. And there isn't anybody on here that I personally don't think has a high degree of ethics and responsibility.
May I add to that? So I would also point out that the APA has an extensive accountability framework in place as a part of the contract. They have to demonstrate they do monitoring on a daily, weekly, monthly, and then adaptive management. And then of course the board holds the educational service provider accountable for educational outcomes in that as well. So I just want you to know too that we also monitor student survival, student recruitment, staff retention, climate surveys, enrollment reports, financial metrics, annual financial reporting, in assessing whether or not the school is or is not achieving our educational outcomes. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I think last question, and would love to hear from someone maybe that hasn't had a lot of airtime during the interview so far. How do you envision, both sort of philosophically, if you will, and also logistically, how you would establish a productive relationship with the Wyoming Charter School Authorizing Board if approved?
It's because I need my and please correct me if I'm wrong. If you don't like this building, the echo and mathematics doesn't play well.
Yeah.
If I understand you correctly, how do I envision the cooperation between our board and
Right, sort of in a philosophical or also logistical sense, what type of relationship would you all like to have, and how would you make that happen with your authorizer?
Well, definitely, first and foremost, I'm going to line communication for sure, because I know we're building the ship as we sail it. You guys are essentially kind of building the ship as you sail it, so we share that commonality. So because of that, we need to have communication, open communication, honest communication, and positive feedback for correction. So that would be my philosophical relationship that I hope to have, and I'm not even say hope to have, I expect that, because education to me is just that. I'm not talking, I mean, yes, you can study philosophy, but I'm more of the meat and potatoes kind of person that we're setting a framework for the future. I'm a futuristic person. I've told members of this community, it's like, yes, this is for your kids, but really it's for the kids of generation. So as we build that partnership between now and a generation from now, you know, we need to know our successes, our challenges, our failures, just as you do, because it is our hope through this board that we can mimic this throughout the state. You know, this isn't just an Alpine, this can be taken throughout the state of Wyoming. And communication between the two of us and working together. Is that?
Any follow-ups?
So what's next? So I have, you know, perhaps a unique perspective on what this process looks like. But I prefer to look at this process as a puzzle. At the center of that puzzle is the application. The pieces that are fitting into it is this, what we just completed is one of those pieces of that puzzle. There was a review that has been done by the experts within the Department of Education. We've not seen that yet. That's another piece of the puzzle. There will be the public comment or the hearing this evening, which will be another piece of that puzzle. And all of these pieces will fit together, which will ultimately lead to the decision that this board takes on the 10th of October. So I know that, you know, there's some people that like to look at this as a sequence. It is not a sequence. It's really pieces that just fit together, not. And I know there was a request for questions and so on. You could see that this was really pretty. I did not know what my fellow board members were going to ask.
Real quickly, to go back to what you were talking about earlier, there's parent participation with every student daily, is that correct? That's a requirement.
Bring your kids to school.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, if for whatever familial problems that occur, parents stop fulfilling that obligation, could that lead to the students failing the program?
No, there's no real, the only expulsion that I'm aware of that's allowable from a public school is for safe school violations where, and I don't know, I would defer to educators, the state board, and am I right here as well? In public schools, we only can separate students for safe school violations. Those laws apply to us equally. So no one's kicked out of the school because they're not participating or because even this student is very difficult.
I will say from my perspective, I thought you did a nice job of recognizing many of the statutes because it is very, very clear from the legislation that was passed that authorized this board that charter schools have to abide by the same statutes as the traditional schools. I mean, there's, of course, anything the traditional school can apply for a waiver for, the charters can, but that's sort of the framework with which we lie in knowing. You know, the only waiver I can really think of is calendar waivers that exist. There aren't a whole lot. You know, teachers must be PTSD certified and so on and so forth. But thank you all for all the effort you put into this. I know it was a lot of effort to read it all. I can't imagine assembling it all. So I thank you and I look forward to hearing from the community this evening.
I was thinking the same thing. And so one of the things we've had a lot of requests from and concern about the people with it is that this is a public school and the law of public school that anybody from Wyoming can come to a public school. And kids in Alpine, we would like to make sure that they get to come to their school and they don't get outed by the lottery of someone that lives out of town. And we've heard that voice in our public hearings, we've heard that voice amongst people, like, what if your school's too full and we can't get our local kids into that school? We're hoping that we can get some legislation or some laws passed that allows Alpine kids to have priority.
Well, perhaps the good senator can help us on this. I honestly don't know. I can just tell you that a local school district has the ability to close their boundaries and not let students in from outside the boundaries. So I can't fathom there not being a mechanism whereby the students of Alpine should be given first priority in your admission process, but I am not an attorney.
Not currently an enrollment priority allowed in the state of Wyoming, but I found research.
Charter schools, the federal designation that he had from the beginning was that you have to be open to anyone and you have oversubscribed your lottery. And you couldn't have any enrollment priorities. Except for, they started adding things from the Fed side. Now, as your state, I hadn't noted that you had added any enrollment priorities. In Utah, we have a, like a 2-mile radius. You can set different priorities for charter schools, but I don't think that's happened yet here. And it's something we would love to see us be able to implement as a priority enrollment for kids who live in a certain vicinity or proximity to the school.
We can certainly go to work on this. We're on a trajectory, you know. We've got a good board, we've got good staff, charter school program. Let's take it all the way and develop it. Make sure that people people in their respective community are taken care of.
In my view, the rules should align with the rules for a local school district, which allows you, too many students attending to be able to close the doors so that district is. So I don't know, does anybody have any idea how the community participation will be on this evening?
And it's like dinner night, this place will be full.
Yes.
Madam Chair, just to follow up, the other night we had anywhere from 120 people here. So it was pretty much full, standing room only. I don't know if I expect that same amount of number. We've told everybody, please show up again. They voice their concerns, and then we, as a town, we put out a questionnaire, a post workshop questionnaire from that. Of that questionnaire, we had 118 respondents. Of those 118, it was basically an 80-20 split of pro and against, not against, but more concerns. I expect at least I would hope that 60 even 70% outcome from that 120 that showed up last week.
So people understand that this really isn't about your facility issue per se, right? That this is the more general discussion of the charter school, and we don't influence what the town of Alpine is going to do.
I would say that message has been sent out there. But as we know, when you get a public forum, we can reemphasize.
Perhaps I should do that when I intro this session. And I guess the 2 other points I'd like to make is, one is, as far as this board is concerned, this is a listening session. We will not be interacting with those folks, with the public comment. And the public comment window will be open until the 25th of September, which is another piece of that puzzle that fits in with the approval process. And anybody that doesn't choose to speak tonight, or if we run out of time, is welcome to submit a written comment.
Thank you. And I assume you will be saying those exact words to the public once they come. Thank you.
After our experience last night, I hope, and we'll talk about it, there's some way that this, we want to hear everybody's comment, sure, as much as we can. But we don't want to hear your life story. And I mean, well,
Once I was.
no, I mean, and people have to take it and so on. We want to make, I want to make the most, the board wants to make the most use of their time. So if people, you know, we get a line going or something, try and keep it, that's our job, but 3 minutes, tell us why you want the school, or don't want the school, let's hear your comments, but we've had a long, I'll speak for myself, but our board as well, we've had a long day today. And, I mean, we want to do our job, but, we've had a long day. There's been a lot of travel involved.
And I just think of a positive event, keep everybody's time and for a very worthy cause. I have a 6 o'clock meeting, I need to get back to Rock Springs and as road warriors, I could not change that. Important meeting, so I will not be completely late. I didn't make last night for the same reason, but I debriefed already and this board will fill me in.
One thing that would really help us tonight is if somebody not us, would kind of organize folks so that they don't all look around here and say, is it my turn?
Sure.
And a lot of people are very polite. They're waiting. But it would be nice, use of time if they could be organized.
I'll basically organize it as we did last week. We did have a line that all the way down. They came up, spoke their piece, sat, and did just that.
We have the council also, Madam Chair, the board's approval, kind of prep people and say your time is limited 3 minutes, get to the point, don't. Don't. Speak to it.
Well, maybe there's one day.
Shouldn't go to the, for what? And in the legislative committee level, we say 2 and 3 minutes, and that's it. We will, we can literally take these tables and chairs, so we can face down as a group here.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
How would you prefer the room set up for your board?
So you'll sit here, maybe just. Last night, the applicants actually sat with the audience, I don't want to share.
I believe that's what our board would prefer is just to be shadows on the seats.
Look, Madam Chair, is there anything we can run and get you real quick? We keep the place closed until that time and let you folks kind of rest, get your breath. And we bring the refreshments in, it's 22 minutes.